from a guy who can make a lot of threes to a guy.
Yeah, it's kind of a funny transition, isn't it?
Really can't. He's the antithesis of Klay Thompson. Have you come to the dark side? Have you come over to my side that this Markelle Fultz thing isn't working out?
I mean, like, I'm still a believer in him as a long-term player, but what Philadelphia is going through right now is pretty difficult to judge, right? Because on one hand, this team has a window now that is like 5 years long, 6 years long. They have 2 more years of Ben Simmons under contract. They have 5 more years of Joel. They have 7 more years of Markelle, like 6 years of Dario. Like they have so many guys that are under contract long-term that the question for me is this team building for later this year, or is this team building for 2.5 years down the road? And I think that the organization itself has to answer that question. And I'm sure that there have been discussions, especially now that Elton Brand has taken over, and Brett Brown, I'm sure, has a say in that front office if he's not the lead voice. So that's where they need to kind of figure out what their overarching plan is. Because when I say this, like, I don't mean it rudely to Fultz, but like what the Hawks did to guard him last night was like kind of embarrassing. It was
totally. I mean, that's the main takeaway. There's no respect being shown, and I don't know what he can do to build it up. Like, honestly,
like, they literally took Kent Bazemore, guarded him with Kent Bazemore because Bazemore's a really good help defender. They could have done 2 things. They could have just decided, all right, we're going to put Trae Young on Markelle Fultz. We don't think Fultz can really beat us that much, so we're going to put our worst defender on him and let him try and beat that guy, and maybe it'll work well for us. Or they could put Kent Bazemore on him and do what they did. And every time that Markelle Fultz stepped beyond 20 feet away from the basket, Bazemore sagged like 7 feet off and doubled on drivers like on the opposite side of the floor, or doubled on Joel Embiid anytime he got a post touch. Because I think that this is kind of the most damning part of it. It seems like the 76ers even don't really believe in Fultz when he gets the ball. Like they're not even trying to pass to the wide open guy that is standing in the corner from 3, because they know that he's probably going to miss the shot.
Which is even more incredible because we see this kind of defense all the time in the playoffs. You just can't have non-shooters on the court in the playoffs. And clearly there have been guys who can't shoot the ball, who can get away with it. And one of them is on, Fultz's own team, Ben Simmons. He can't shoot. And so what do defenses do? They sag off as much as they can. But what does Simmons? He just drives past him anyway. Right. Markelle Fultz is a point guard.
He's tried so long, and he's just so powerful that he can kind of bowl through guys.
Totally. And that's what Giannis has done for years and years and years. And now he's developing a respectable outside shot, and it's game over. Like, Markelle Fultz is a guy who, in theory, should be able to penetrate and get to the hole right now. As a point guard who I've seen, we saw him do it. That's why he was part of the reason he was the number 1 overall pick. And the fact that it doesn't even seem like he has the confidence to do that is even more damning. Yes, he is not going to make the outside shot, and you're going to sag off of him Tony Allen style. But the fact that if you give him the ball, okay, he's either going to miss this open 3, and he can't really do anything to create a play with all the space that you're giving him. That's the real disconcerting part. There's a lot of guys who can't shoot. There's not a lot of guys they look helpless out there.
It's complicated because I think that when Ben is out there, Fultz does look kind of helpless. And I'll give you some numbers to back that up. So Kyle Neubeck over at Philly Voice did a really great job breaking down this entire idea here. And he was looking up the same numbers that I was. And I'd be remiss if I didn't notice and note like exactly what Kyle did here, because Kyle broke it all out in a very nice chart form. So when Simmons and Fultz are on the floor, the 76ers have a negative 17.6 defensive or net rating. They're shooting 20% from 3, and they're averaging 15.3 assists per 36 minutes. And you can realize why that's happening, right? Because teams are just straight up collapsing on the paint every single time. The Hawks essentially played a shell defense in the paint during the first 7 minutes of that game while Fultz was on the floor last night. I think that the 76ers scored 8 points during that time. When Fultz is on the floor without Ben, the team is plus 4.6, averaging 22.5 assists per 36 minutes. And then even additionally beyond that, the more important part of this is how it's all affecting Simmons, given the fact that he's your all-NBA talent for sure. Plus 13.2 net rating for Ben Simmons when he's on the floor without Markelle Fultz. That says a lot to me. These two guys, it's pretty clear to me they can't play together right now. Like, I don't know if they can play together in the future. Maybe they can. But right now, this team cannot have those two on the floor together and have the kind of success that they want to have going forward as an organization in the 2018-19 season.
It all comes back to the decision they made at the beginning of the year, which I found to be rather flabbergasting, though I guess justifiable in a certain sense. There was one line of logic that you could use to say this makes sense, which is when they decided to take away one of the best five-man units, break it up, move J.J. Redick to the bench, and have Markelle Fultz start in place of him. That didn't make any sense to me because Markelle Fultz hadn't proven that he was worthy of a starting job yet. And while, yes, you need to get him and Simmons to learn how to play together because that is the crux of the Sixers' future, I would have preferred a slow play. Because now you're looking at the situation where I guess it's the worst case scenario, where you tried to get these two to play together. It's not working. It's painfully not working. I mean, it's aggressively not working. And now you have to essentially demote a player that never deserved the promotion in the first place, if we're just being honest. Now you have to demote him to the bench, which he might be able to get his mojo back, but then you have to try this whole thing again. And there is not, you don't get a positive linear progression that can help a guy's confidence, which seems to be the crux of the issue here.
So I can give you numbers on the lineup stuff there as well.
Yeah.
So J.J. Redick with Ben Simmons, Dario Saric, Joel Embiid, and Robert Covington. This year, that is the lineup that still has played the most minutes of any group for the Philadelphia 76ers. It should come as zero surprise that that group is a plus 17.5 per 100 possessions whenever that team is on the floor. They have a 72.2 assist rate. They move the ball all over the place, and they dominate defensively. When Fultz is with Simmons, Embiid, Saric, and Covington, the team has a negative 36.5 net rating, an assist rate of 53.6, because they can't get the same drive and kick game because they have less shooting on the floor, and because teams just kind of collapse in on them. There are fewer angles to kick out to. It's just not working in any way. And this is, again, where it comes back to the 76ers have to decide what, if it stops tomorrow, do you know where Markelle Fultz is going to be valuable?
No.
Over at DraftKings.
Damn it.
Basketball season is finally back, and you know what that means. It's time to put your basketball knowledge to the test with one-day fantasy basketball at DraftKings. DraftKings is giving away over $400 million in prizes this season. That's more than 10 times what Los Angeles is going to pay LeBron James himself. No matter what your skill level is, there's a contest waiting for you at DraftKings. Drafting your team is simple. Just select 8 players and stay under the $50,000 salary cap. And the best part is that you get to draft a new team every single day without commitment. There is no better way to turn your love of basketball into cash. Trust me, I do this just about nightly. Like I am in on DraftKings at this stage.
Yeah, you're all about it, man.
Download the app and head over to DraftKings.com now and use my code THEORY to support the show and play free with your first deposit. Remember, there will be $400 million in total prizes up for grabs throughout the season. That's code THEORY to play for free with your first deposit only at DraftKings.com. There's a minimum $5 deposit. Eligibility restrictions apply. See DraftKings.com for details. The 76ers have to decide what their priority is. What do you think of that? Like, should their priority right now be, hey, we need to get Markelle more reps. We need to get him more time with the starters because this guy is still an integral part of their future. Or do you just say, we can't play this guy? Like, what does it say to our teammates that we can't play this guy?
they're in an beneficiation to where they have a lot of capital to play with, and they play in a shitty conference. So they can get away with it. I think they made their bed when they chose at the beginning of the year to put him in the starting lineup. I don't think you can abandon it now, even though you should. Everything about it says you should. At some point, you're just going to have to keep banging your head against this brick wall and hoping that it breaks, because I do not like the notion of moving him to the bench, trying to get his confidence up with the second unit, where it's probably even more exacerbated the stuff that they're going to do to him defensively. And then trying to reintegrate him if he does succeed in that role. I don't like the notion of a demotion, pardon the rhyme. Like, it's a mess. And I don't think this is confirmation bias either to where I stood before the season started. I did think it was a mistake, but once you go this route, you can't go the other way. I just think that there's too many negative side effects. You have to see it out. You at least have to get 15 games. You have to start legitimately torpedoing your chances of doing anything this season before you can abandon this, because, as you said, it's so integral to this team, and I don't know when they're going to be able to sort of reestablish a chance or an opportunity to get him back into the starting lineup. If you send him down now, right, and then you give him 20, 30 games with the bench, and hopefully he becomes the ace of the second unit and he builds himself back up, now you're going into crunch time, second half of the season, and I guess you're reintegrating Markelle Fultz into the starting lineup and hoping it works. Like, those games are really important at that juncture. I know they all count the same, but they feel bigger in those moments, and teams are going to be more keyed in, and they're going to try, they're going to be a bit more aggressive on the defensive end. They're going to come up with probably better game plans. But it's incredible early in the season that it's so obvious to opposing teams that they can come up with an entire game plan to screw this guy up, and that he can't do anything about it.
So here's my pitch in terms of what I think. Dario Saric has started poorly as well. Dario is always a guy that has had a pretty tenuous fit with Ben Simmons on the floor, I think.
Yeah.
When he was shooting it really, really well last year, it all worked out. And, I'm actually a huge fan of what Dario brings to the table. He's really a capable passer. He can handle the ball, just an incredibly skilled offensive player. Maybe the move is you switch Redick for Saric in the starting lineup. So you start Fultz, Redick, Simmons, Covington, and Embiid. You attach Redick to Markelle Fultz's hip, essentially, and make it so that, with JJ, the way he runs off of screens constantly, with the way that he can create gravity for defenders where they have to shoot out on him immediately, it's going to create either defensive breakdowns from teams that are not used to running these very strange defensive schemes that they're running to try and shut down Markelle Fultz, or B, it's going to create driving lanes for Markelle Fultz to potentially attack off the dribble.
At least more, theoretically.
Yeah, like I would give that a try more than anything. Make it clear to Dario, like, hey, this is why we're doing this. We really want Markelle to work. We want this to grow and prosper together. This is not necessarily because you have started the season poorly. We want you to be able to run our second unit because we think you're capable of that. Like, I would just kind of try and phrase it that way. And, you're still going to close games. Like, Markelle isn't closing for us in close games. You are. But, like, we want to try something different. And we think it's important that we continue to build up this guy's confidence.
I guess it is baffling. I mean, at what point does this organization lose credibility with its players?
I think that's definitely a question for sure. But, like, it's all about communication. Like, I think if you communicate something like that properly, it's fine. Like, you can get away with it.
I think that the issue isn't the messaging; it's the message. Like, how do you continue to say, listen, we are going to shoehorn this guy in, and while you can see on a daily basis that it is not working. I mean, I don't know. I don't know. It seems as if, the team is still around him. I don't know how much longer this can go on.
I think they like him. Like, this is a big part of it too. Like, Markelle Fultz is like a really good kid. Like, people like
no doubt
him. Like, he has the confidence of the players because well, not the, I don't know if they have the confidence on the floor, but they genuinely want him to succeed, I think. And that's what the biggest part of this is. So I think that there is something to that. And I do think that they run that risk, but I don't think we're there yet. You know what I mean?
Yeah, 4-3 in the Eastern Conference. I mean, it's 7 games in. You don't want to. But
the other thing about all of this is too, again, like you said, they're 4-3. Like this isn't that big of a deal. It is problematic, and it is something that is annoying because they're not as good as what they were last year.
But I think I was expecting that. I didn't necessarily tie it to this, but I felt like the Sixers probably overachieved last year. You think about that run they had.
Maybe.
Season, and so they were always due for some regression down. But this seems toxic, or it seems like it's potentially toxic, and you just can't be so idealistic at the sake of, I mean, listen, at the sake of nothing right now. They're 4-3. It doesn't really matter. We're not talking about seedings or anything like that. But if you continue to do this, if we're 30, 40, 50 games into the season and it's still not working, at what point do the players go, we're taking our season for Markelle Fultz? Like, we have a chance to win a championship. This guy isn't going to get it done. And how long will ownership hold on to its pride? How long will management hold on to its pride? Like, Elton Brand is not in an enviable situation here, because this is not his guy per se, and he has to essentially make a decision on him if this continues that will define his career for a long time. And
I think we go 25 games.
Listen, I'm willing to take it to Christmas because the conference is really loose. But the fact that it seems worse than even we could have imagined is really bad.
And like the weird thing is that it's not all Markelle necessarily either, because
right?
Like I said, like he's been fine when he's not played on the floor with Simmons. It's just the lack of shooting that those two combined together bring is problematic. So like part of me is just like, hey, it's not that this guy can't be effective. He's shown some flashes of being effective. He's not been like this abject disaster of a basketball player so far. He's been not great. He's been a young player that has shown flashes that has probably been more negative than positive. Mm-hmm. But it's not like there's nothing there to grow on either.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. We're not dealing with Anthony Bennett territory here, but this is the peculiarity of it all. I mean, why is Ben Simmons the point guard on this team? He wasn't supposed to be the point guard of this team. It was supposed to be Fultz as the point guard and Simmons off the ball.
Like you have to have Ben be the lead guy because he's just too good.
Then why the hell do you draft Markelle Fultz?
Because at the time, Markelle could shoot and you could play him off the ball.
Yeah, but so can, Jason Tatum.
Yeah, but
and let's not forget,
here's the thing, like
it wasn't their number 1 overall pick. They traded up to get Markelle Fultz.
Yeah, I mean, look, it's not going to look great. No one's going to deny that this trade is not going to look great. It's trying to figure out how to make good on a sunk cost, right?
Yeah, but there's a whole fallacy about that, my friend.
Yeah. Like literally, the sunk cost fallacy is a thing. Like we need to.
We're living in it right now, the Philadelphia 76ers.
But it's not like a completely sunk cost. It's just like 50% of the asset is sunk. We need to live with what we have. You know what I mean?
Well, they need to salvage whatever it is he is. Right. I mean, that's the thing. We have no idea. Listen, Markelle Fultz can just come out of this. Like,
what if he can shoot? Like, he was a fine shooter in high school. He shot 40% from 3 in college and was like in the 90th percentile as a shooter off the dribble Washington.
The only reason this is exactly the only reason that this is weird is because it's weird. Like, it's not one of those situations where you're like, oh, well, he could never shoot, and like they're trying to teach him. Like, no, he could shoot, as you just said, and he could dribble, and he played with confidence, and he was a killer out there. He was awesome at Washington, and there was every reason to think, even as the number 1 overall pick, that he could be the dude. Now, I didn't necessarily like him in theory as a two guard. I liked him as a combo who probably had the ball in his hands more often than not, with Simmons playing off the ball. But and that fit really made much sense to me, if we're honest, especially now that we've seen what Simmons is and that he needs to be a ball dominant guard, I guess, wing, whatever the hell he is anymore. But like, yeah, but it could just, the only reason that this is being force fed, right, and that this is being discussed in the way that it is, and that we are not fully at sunk cost fallacy yet, is because there is in the back of everyone's mind this thought that it could just stop tomorrow. It's the yips. I mean, a lot of this is just the yips.
Yeah, I think that's right.